Are AirPods the cigarettes of our generation?
No they aren't, and I have absolutely no idea why you would claim they were, given the fact there is no good evidence of a link between normal exposure to electromagnetic fields from AirPods and negative health effects.
Now, the same thing could arguably be said about cell phones in general.
Right, so what is said, in general of course, about wireless lavalier mics? Like the one you're using now? They're okay, I'm guessing. Or did you not realise that lav mics use exactly the same method of transmission that AirPods use? I'm just curious. Please subscribe.
Even most of our modern technology, it's just with these new wireless AirPods that some people are wearing all day, every day, even at night when they're sleeping, the intensity of radiation close to the brain has increased drastically.
That may well be the case, although given that AirPods have a battery life of around 3 hours, I'm not sure you've done much research around this topic, Frankie boy.
A not so good analogy is that cell phones are like lead pipes and AirPods are like drinking Flint, Michigan water every day.
Correct. That wasn't a good analogy. It was just a few words you strung together to try and scare the people that watch you, which is pretty much what your entire channel is about. You stand there done up like a dog's dinner in front of your fancy whiteboard, giving the poor unfortunate souls who are gullible enough to believe you really bad information. It took me, and I'm an idiot from Wales, about 15 seconds to find out that everything you've said in your video is nothing more than scaremongering.
Normally, you have your phone in your pocket all day, a few feet away from your head.
All right, nobody likes to show off. When my phone is in my pocket, it's right next to my head. I don't think that's the head he means. What? Ah, okay. Well, it turns out that he meant your actual head and not the one that's closest to your trouser pocket. Sorry.
Comparing 10-15 minutes on your phone next to your head every day to having AirPods in for 10 hours.
Look, I've got to ask, where the hell are you getting 10 hours from? AirPods have a listening life of 3 hours max, and if you factor in phone calls, it's even less. Are you just plucking 10 hours out of the air because you decided that saying 3 wasn't scary enough?
Is such a huge contrast in overall oxidative stress on the brain.
Now, believe it or not, some studies have suggested that exposure to EMF radiation, particularly from sources like mobile phones, Wi-Fi routers and power lines, may contribute to oxidative stress in cells. However, it's important to note that the research in this area is complex and not yet conclusive. But somehow old Frankie boy has already decided that it's 100% bad, and I'm sure that his opinion has got nothing to do with the fact that he makes a living by selling anti-EMF clothing to gullible people.
People are going to notice significant side effects, whether it's your memory, overall mental clarity, sleep, out the window. Okay,
so a person's memory, sleep and mental clarity aren't linked to anything other than exposure to EMF radiation. So no other conditions can cause any of those symptoms. I'm just checking. So your age, the stress and anxiety you may be suffering from, poor nutrition, chronic medical conditions, any medications you may be taking, and lack of mental stimulation are all off the hook then. It's just EMF. Well, that's handy for you, Frank, isn't it?
Now, radiation in general is commonly referred to as EMF, electric and magnetic fields. The type that is emitted from cell phones is called radio frequency technology, which is somewhat easier to avoid than the others.
Look, I've got to ask, why do you keep calling it just radiation? Is it because you know full well that the word radiation is a scary word to a lot of people? What you're failing to say is that the type of radiation emitted by things like mobile phones is non-ionizing radiation, and it's considered to have low levels of energy and is generally regarded as safe within limits set by regulatory authorities.
Plus, the mainstream media will have you believe it's perfectly fine and healthy, that the radiation from these devices isn't harmful.
How very woke of you, Frank. The mainstream media line? Yeah, we've never heard that from a conspiracy theorist, have we? You do all realize that the media just reports on things. They haven't actually done any of the studies that show us that EMF radiation is relatively safe themselves. So what you're saying is, even though we have lots of studies showing that EMF is relatively safe, You think that the mainstream media is lying to us all about it. And that's fine. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And my opinion is that you are doing exactly what you're accusing mainstream media of. Lying to people to try and further your own business. The business you have that sells anti-EMF clothing. Pot, beat kettle.
To the point where they will immediately label you as a conspiracy theorist for even suggesting it could be harmful.
And they should, because you are. Plain and simple. You probably heard some other conspiracy bozo from a different YouTube channel saying the things you're saying in your own YouTube videos now. And rather than actually doing some solid research and finding out that you're wrong, you decided to set up a company selling products to gullible people that will protect them from this so-called dangerous type of radiation, despite all the studies that have been done telling us otherwise.
Reality is there should be class action lawsuits against the FCC and all of these regulating bodies over this technology for misleading people and not being truthful.
Right, now look, none of us know for certain that any type of radiation is completely harmless. But the one big difference between a conspiracy theorist like Frankie Boyer and a normal person is that the conspiracy theorist only needs to hear another conspiracy theorist say something is bad in order for them to believe the same thing 100%. Whereas anyone who isn't a conspiracy theorist can very easily find the information explaining that studies have proven otherwise. Currently. Could it change in the future? Yeah, of course it could. But for now, I am quite happy to accept the information we have available to us, thanks to science, which all says it's fine for us to use these types of devices in moderation.
But it's such a high level of technology, literally invisible. We can't understand it, we can't see it as average people, that it's a bit beyond our reach to get involved in something like that.
So why have you then? Now, I'm not pretending to be any sort of expert, but what I am saying is that we have experts for a reason, pal. And instead of going out of your way to try and prove that they are all into some sort of global lie, it might be useful for you to actually read some of the studies that show us every single reason why you and people like you have got no clue what they're talking about. And yet there's still a section of people that believe you.
This is actually really serious. What can I do to reduce the radiation? Because the mainstream isn't telling me the truth if I feel so much better away from the technology.
Well, in your case, you could maybe think about using a wired lavalier mic. And let me guess, the mainstream media isn't telling us the truth, and you, Frank Tofano, founder of anti-EMFclothing.scam, is. Is that about right?
Personally, I wear EMF protective clothing all day. We have WiFiShielding.com, guys.
Sorry, my bad, WiFiShielding.com. Do you not understand what being self-aware means? Can you not see why some people like me and anyone else who isn't a gullible idiot would be skeptical of your type of content? What you're doing is trying to frighten people into giving you money via your website. Maybe I should start a bottled water company and then start uploading videos to the internet telling everyone that all the water in the world is bad, except for mine.
I try to limit my cell phone usage, keep it on airplane mode. I also sleep in a bed canopy Faraday cage, which is super important for your body to recover from the oxidative stress from the radiation all day.
You've never thought about just leaving your phone downstairs on charge when you go to bed? Wouldn't that have exactly the same effect as sleeping in a Faraday bed canopy? Ah, wait, silly me. Of course, if people realized they could just do the exact same thing by leaving their phone in a different room or even downstairs, you'd be out of business in a week, wouldn't you? And nobody wants that.
You know, instead of AirPods, you should be using wired headphones. Even better, they have air tubes.
I hate repeating myself, but using that logic, shouldn't you stop using a wireless lavalier mic? I don't think this guy knows what irony is either, and I've got to be honest, I had to Google air tubes, and you'll never guess what. That's another product that people like Frank sell. No, I was shocked as well.
So we do have one study to look at today. Risk to health and well-being from radio frequency radiation emitted by cell phones and other wireless devices.
Brilliant. Now we're talking a study. Which one is it? I've looked at a lot.
Radiation exposure has long been a concern for the public, policymakers, and health researchers. Beginning with radar during World War II, human exposure to radiofrequency radiation technologies has grown substantially over time. In 2011, the International Agency for Research on Cancer reviewed the published literature and categorized RFR, radiofrequency radiation, as a possible human carcinogen.
Sorry, me again, I've got to jump in, it's killing me not talking. Now, based on the information that he's sharing and based on what I can find, the study he's talking about was on rat, not people, rat. And I don't know what the rats are like in New York City, but in Swansea, they don't really use mobile phones. Look, nobody is claiming this type of technology is 100% safe, but what the studies do show is that they're safe enough for us to use. And misleading claims about the dangers to health can cause people to worry unnecessarily based on bad information. If misleading or unevidenced information about dangers to health is posted on YouTube, then it needs to be challenged, and I will, every time.
A broad range of adverse human health effects associated with RFR have been reported since the review. In addition, 3 large-scale carcinogenic studies in rodents exposed to levels of RFR that mimic lifetime human exposure have shown significantly increased rates of different cancers, as well as chromosomal DNA damage.
Again, I hate letting people talk for that long. But, you know, I have to ask, how is it that mainstream is lying to us all about the dangers of EMF, but the study you are vaguely citing, you seem to think that that's perfectly legit? Is it because you think it backs up what you're saying? It is, isn't it?
Of particular concern are the effects of RFR exposure on the developing brain in children. Compared with an adult male, a cell phone held against the head of a child exposes deeper brain structures to greater radiation doses per unit volume, and the young thin skull's bone marrow absorbs a roughly 10-fold higher local dose.
Yeah, you don't have kids, Frank, do you? Because if you did, you wouldn't have said what you just said. Who the hell is letting small kids use mobile phones? My word, this guy's a moron. You do realize that electromagnetic radiation has been around since the birth of the universe, right? Light is its most familiar form. Electric and magnetic fields are part of the spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, which extends from static electric and magnetic fields through radio frequency and infrared radiation. So Frankie boy, I don't think your cage is going to be enough to protect you. If you really want to protect yourself from EMF, then never turn on a light again, or go outside during the day. Anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone who responded to my community post from a few days ago. You lot are bloody cowing awesome, as we would say in Wales. And I do consider myself extremely lucky to have people like you supporting me. See you all in the next one. Take care. Love you, bye.
Alright, watch this next. But before you do, make sure you subscribe. By order of the Creaky Blinder.